This is another one of my favorite lectures, so I'm a little disappointed we're doing it on slideshows, but here we go. Let's talk about avoiding bias. For informative speech, you really want to watch your language. Now, can you ever totally avoid bias? Most likely not, unless you truly don't have an opinion. However, the words we choose can create or limit showing your bias. So let's talk about some of this. Some of the language that we choose when designing our speeches can create the difference between an informative and a persuasive speech. So we're going to talk about loaded language and abstract and concrete words. So on the screen are two screenshots of two very different news sources. We've got Breitbart News, which is considered highly partisan, right-wing information, and we've got Alternate, which is considered highly partisan, left-wing information. And we're going to break this down a little bit later. So, avoiding loaded language, snarl words, and glittering generalities can help us create a bias-free, informative speech. Loaded language is wording that attempts to influence an audience by using an appeal to emotion or stereotypes. For example, tax relief. Well, suddenly, if something's a relief, well, then it used to be a burden. We've got welfare queen. Welfare queen invokes an emotional story and was originally coined by Ronald Reagan in the 1976 RNC National Convention, talking about a woman who had 80 aliases and 20 dead veteran husbands and somebody who was living off the hard work of other people. And finally, at the end, we've got bureaucrat versus public servants. They describe the same type of employment, but really invoke different emotions. Bureaucrat is full of red tape. Public servant is somebody who gives their life for the greater cause. But really, they may be the same job. So let's talk a little bit about snarl words. Snarl words are used specifically to dismiss ideas, to tell your audience they're not worth knowing about. For example, communist, Nazi, gun nut, radical feminist, or snowflake. If I were to call anybody that in a fight, I may be absolutely saying they're not worth talking to, well, they're just a Nazi, right? They're not worth talking to, they're just a snowflake. And that's what they have really started calling your generation. Here are a bunch of other wonderful examples you can find online. I literally went to Wikipedia and looked up snarl words. And you'll find a lot of them that you're familiar with and some of them you may not be. Atheist, progressive, Islamophobia, leftist, libtard is kind of a popular one, teabagger, moonbat. I've looked that up like 3 times and I never remember what it is. We've got rhino and dino. Rhino is probably more often used. It's known as Republican in name only. Dino, of course, is the opposite, Democrat in name only. These can actually be a lot of fun to look up, and you'll notice some of them maybe you say, hey, well, I don't understand. Why is that a snarl word? Well, sometimes it totally depends on who the audience is. For example, being a conservative while listening to Fox News, it's not really going to be a snarl word. It's probably going to be more general, glittering generalities. However, a liberal on Fox News is definitely going to be a snarl word, or a communist or a socialist. These are great examples of snarl words depending on your audience. So let's break down that glittering generality. These are the opposite of snarl words. Sometimes they're known as purr words, and they aim to invoke warm feelings. Suddenly, the minute that we hear this, we want to hear more about it. We want to, we feel like it's worth more. Organic, GMO free. If something's for the children, It's absolutely a glittering generality. Talking about technology, you want it to be state of the art. Going back to Wikipedia, American values, children, as I said. Libertarian, which is interesting. I don't think you got Democratic over here, but I don't think I see conservative this time. Social justice, traditional values, open-minded. All of these things bring up these much more positive imagery. So while it's not going to be totally possible to remove all of the loaded language from your speeches, just be aware of these language choices that we make, and that's made by journalists, that's made on television, that's made in newspapers, that's made online, that we may not even think of as snarl words, but creates that emotional response in us. Finally, we're going to talk about the difference between abstract and concrete words. Great example is ethereal versus earth. It's literally abstract versus concrete nouns. Concrete is something tangible, and abstract or something intangible. They're on a spectrum because this isn't a binary choice. For example, profound is more abstract than knowledgeable, but a subject matter expert in mathematics is more concrete than either. The word I like to use is smart. How many of us know a really dumb, smart person? You might be better off calling them knowledgeable. Maybe they have a lot of knowledge in a particular topic. But it's the subject matter expert that really hits that concrete meaning. You absolutely know that this person is a subject matter expert in a specific subject. Why is it more important to stick with concrete terms? To keep your audience from having to figure out which definition might be needed. Avoid that which is which. Finally, watch out for weasel words. And we're about to watch a quick little video that talks about this.
Other journalists use phrases like "some people say" or "officials say" when they're trying to insert anonymously information in a story that sort of advances the storyline. Fox does it in a different way. "Some people say" is Fox's cue that I'm pretending to be an anchor, so I can't say this is my opinion or this is Roger Ailes' opinion, but some people say.
Some people say that'd be a pretty good choice. Bring in the Hispanic vote.
Some people say, he's posturing.
Some people say, and excuse me, I'll get to you, Joe, in just a second, but some people say that you may be setting up Sharpton for a run against Hillary in 2006 in the Senate.
Journalistically, it's a very peculiar technique because the idea behind journalism is that you're sourcing who you're referring to. This is just sort of a clever way of inserting political opinion when you know it probably shouldn't be there.
Some people say that this might undermine what the U.S. troops are doing there.
Some people say John Kerry has some similarities to an earlier Massachusetts politician.
And some people say, in light of what's happened with the oil for food program,
Some people say supported by Iran.
Some say, I've heard a couple people say,
Some say that it's a sour grapes book.
some people say it's just too violent, there's too much blood.
Some people say.
some people say,
Well, some people say it.
Some people say.
Some say it.
Some people say. Some are saying.
Some people say it.
There's some people who say something is not major, it has already happened. Those are his words.
some people say it's exploitive. What do you say to
So you really got to be careful of that "some people say," also known as a weasel word. So let's go back to these original news sources. And I want you to comment on the discussion page. What words do you think is loaded language? Do you think they're snarl words, or do you think they're glittering generalities? So, in summary, today we talked about loaded language and abstract and concrete words. Make sure you comment if you have any questions.